in 2017, the sci-fi horror movie Life was released. With Ryan Reynolds, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Rebecca Ferguson, the movie feels like a mixture of Alien, Species, and The Thing. Like many sci-fi horror movies, the movie features a series of bad decisions that often leave the viewer frustrated. Still, the acting is good enough, the story isn't terrible, and the sets are good as well. The movie really focuses on the dangers of examining alien life. In other words, if we, mankind, discover something, it'd be best to leave it alone. Overall, I'd say the movie feels like a missed opportunity, and while good, it really could have been great. The theme of the movie Life is, well, around life. The alien, named Calvin, is just trying to survive. It doesn't have malevolent intentions toward the astronauts on board. Rather, though, the only way it can survive and live is if it consumes the astronauts. It's similar to humans, needing to consume animals to live. In essence, the movie Life is about survival. The story of Life centers around 6 astronauts on a space station. Early on in the film, they capture a probe returning from Mars. They extract soil samples from it, which contain some sort of strange biological organism. It begins as a tiny organism, only visible under the microscope. The group, most notably Hugh, the lead scientist, underestimate the being and don't see it as a potential adversary. As a result, it escapes from its confinement, and soon there's a loose alien on the space station. The movie's entertaining enough, but there's several weaknesses in it. One is the bad decisions that leave the viewer frustrated. For example, the firewalls to keep the alien contained. If you recall, the first firewall is the box that Hugh keeps poking and prodding the thing in. He keeps playing with it like a pet, even though it's showing all these incredible abilities. This is reminiscent of The Thing in Species in a way. Calvin is able to break out of the box, though, because all it had to do was penetrate the rubber gloves. The second firewall is the room. As soon as it broke out, the protocol should have been to lock down that room. The group doesn't do so, though. Rory, played by Ryan Reynolds, storms the room and saves an unconscious Hugh, and then proceeds to be killed. Calvin escapes through an air vent because they didn't immediately lock down the room. This should be basic protocol when probing an alien species. Overall, I think this decision leaves the viewer frustrated. In addition, and not to beat a dead horse here, but the room should have been equipped with several things to allow them to kill the alien in case something like this happens. One is remove the oxygen from the room. Second could be to incinerate the room. A third option even could be to break off the room and just shoot it into space. Ignoring protocols has been done many times before. For example, the Alien franchise had at least 2 movies where the crew ignores protocols around an alien life form, and this ultimately results in more death. It happened in the original, when they let Kane back on the ship. It also happens in Alien Covenant, when they rush the infected soldier back on the smaller ship, and ultimately it leads to their demise. In Life, another bad scene in the film is when Jake reads the children's book, Goodnight Moon. It feels forced, and it's just cheesy. Jake Gyllenhaal looks uncomfortable doing this, and it really doesn't add anything to the movie. In general, the characters in the film are not really well developed. Other than Show, we really don't know much about their backgrounds. Why did they choose to be astronauts? What are their fears and their motivations? All these are questions the movie doesn't bother to explore. It's a bit annoying considering this is a good group of actors. I think in the movie Ryan Reynolds doesn't seem to know how to play his role. As a result, we see him play like he acts in almost all his movies, with that sarcastic sense of humor, like in movies like Deadpool and Red Notice. In the film, in my opinion, there's also definitely a lack of chemistry among the actors. Jake Gyllenhaal and Rebecca Ferguson don't seem to have any chemistry. Generally, the actors don't seem to work well with one another in the movie. Moving toward the ending, it seems to suggest that if Calvin reaches Earth, it will destroy mankind. But is that the case, really? Do we know if Calvin can reproduce? Based on the science in the movie, it seems like he's just going to keep consuming and getting bigger and bigger. It's obviously tough to kill, but it seems the military would be able to kill it or trap it. If anything, put it on a spaceship and fire it out into deep space. Despite this movie having some glaring weaknesses, it still does several things well. For one, it doesn't waste time and the pacing is good. Early on, we get introduced to the main storyline, which is good. Also, the acting is good, although I really expected a little bit more from this group. Sho was the only one who I thought did good overall, or he did the best. In sum, the movie is entertaining and has some impressive shots and cinematography. The ending wasn't bad by any means too, a little bit predictable, but pretty solid. The movie had a big budget, but really wasn't much of a box office success. The death scenes were okay, but I think this film overall was just a missed opportunity.